give that voice meaning to actionable change, creating programs and cultivating women within healthcare is how you actually propel innovation and change. I think one of the first things that you can do from an organization perspective that we've done, like Gemini or ChatGPT 4.0, the secured versions of those. So I believe that is absolutely critical to any organization's success. How do you become the voice of your client? Technology is going to be what drives that change. There's a huge opportunity for us to create change, leveraging the tools that are easy to leverage right now, having the right people that have the right cultural mindset for change and embracing change.
Within First Light Home Care as Executive Vice President of Experience Innovation,
Yep.
and then but then you had very humble beginnings, and it's you don't leaders are born, but then you need to go through that journey to become a leader, with your life lessons. So we want to know how you started your journey as a caregiver, as a unit assistant, um, uh, taking care of patients, which is fascinating, right? Where you could really feel for how a patient needs to be taken care of, and also as a caregiver, the experience on the ground. How did that all began on your personal front, and run us through that, and how you have any anecdotes, memories, that a story that would resonate with all of us, to motivate us to be in that space in our daily lives too, when we take care of our seniors in our own communities as well as in our families.
Yeah. So to start, you know, I started as you mentioned, as a unit assistant, but before that I was a candy striper. And that all got started actually because of my father. And my father was probably my first mentor, he's my guiding light. He's a nuclear engineer for General Electric, and was for 36 years working for them and fixed a lot of the machines, like the nuclear medicine machines. Oh, are you still there?
Oh, dang. Just as you were getting going.
I was like, did I lose him?
Sorry. Yeah.
Okay, are you there?
It just
Okay.
now. Yeah. Continue. You're talking about a
Okay.
father. I'm sorry about that.
Oh, it's all right. So, my dad was a nuclear engineer and worked on a lot of the nuclear medicine machines in the hospitals for 36 years. And growing up, I had the firsthand experience of what that was like, because I was my dad's shadow growing up. And he would, whenever a call came in, no matter if it was normal business hours or after business hours, he would have to go in to fix it, because sometimes it was between life and death and somebody was getting ready to be, in surgery and whatnot. And a machine needs to be addressed and fixed. Because of that, I tagged along in some of those situations and got to, in situations that weren't putting people at risk from a HIPAA perspective, but then I got to see what it was like to be in a hospital setting. I got to hang out with the nurses at the nurses station, and I loved the atmosphere of it all. I loved the vulnerability of everyone that was coming in and out of those rooms, and that they're in the most vulnerable state of their life, and the impact that you can have on them. When people say that you can't change the world, I've never believed anything that somebody says you can't do. If they say that you can't do it, we figure out a way to solve it. And when people say that you can't change the world, I think they're not thinking about the impact that you can have individually on every situation. And that is what drove me to want to work in the healthcare system. And so as soon as I was old enough, I volunteered. As soon as I became old enough to get a job, that was my first job as a unit assistant. And I got to work with the nurses, and I got to be with some of the most vulnerable patients on the neurotrauma lab at a hospital in Springfield, Missouri. And through that experience, I thought for sure I was going to be a nurse. And so I was going through the path of becoming a CNA whenever I became of age and able to do that. And I saw a lot of the good, bad, and the ugly that comes with the acute care setting. And what I saw was a lot of rehospitalizations, especially as I worked on the neurotrauma side of things. People would go home, get discharged, and an incident would occur, a lot of times a fall, and it would send them back into the hospital. And I thought to myself through all of that experience that I was having at a really rather young age, that there's got to be a better way. And you start to put yourself in the shoes of, is this the kind of care that I want to receive? You know, and what do I want the healthcare system to look like whenever it's finally time for me to be on the receiving end of the care? And that passion and that mentality and that drive is what then ultimately drove me to go find employment, and wanted to work as a caregiver at Integrity Home Care out of Springfield, Missouri. And so I applied there and became an aide. But because of the experience that I had, they wanted me to really come into the office and become a scheduler too. So I quickly moved up the ranks, and I've held most of the positions that I've ever managed for, or I've got direct experience into. And I think that's an important differentiator in leadership, because it's not just I'm talking in theory, I'm talking from actual firsthand experience of what it's like. And so that's kind of the story of coming up into it. And then, when I think back to, I use my dad in past tense a lot. My dad passed away 9 years ago. I was my dad's family caregiver in his home that was supplemented through hospice care. And we had to hire a private duty home care agency to help me with the care, so that I had support as well. Because of that, my dad was able to fulfill his wishes, which were to live out his final days in his home. And so for me, the importance of what we get to do and the opportunity for what that means for our industry is personal. And so I don't know, does that answer your question or get you what you?
Yes, yes, absolutely. No, that is really fascinating, Kristen. I did not know that you had your own father's connection, both when you started your journey as a caregiver, and also when and it's your payback to your father,
Yeah,
and dedication when you took care of him personally. Must be so emotional for you in his last days,
yeah.
9 years ago as a caregiver.
And so I actually had
Absolutely
my mom move in with me, out, through that period. And so now I have my mom, who's an amazing support system and lives with me. And I just think that care in the home and being there for people, like, that's that's how we live longer lives and more fulfilled lives. What better purpose is there?
wonderful. That's awesome. No, talking of that, just continuing that question around your career choices, right? So absolutely, your personal story was significant driver for you to be part of that. But then I'm seeing your LinkedIn profile, and I see you have such a varied experience as a leader. You quickly went up the ranks as a leader from your experience, and then you have really moved around and navigated through the path of the ecosystem. You made sure that you're not um, as a successful leader, you don't want to be in one space all the time, right? You need to really experience across the board. You were part of an home care agency as a leader, to that of an AI innovation software company who is an EMR, Can
Yep.
Time for a long time. Then you went to Home Care Pulse, which is probably in the training, if I know. They're
Yeah.
they're
Reputation management.
their capability management. So that's like, how do you use AI and innovation um, in enabling the caregivers, and then you're back again at the helm in improving the experience, and then fostering more innovation in a home care agency. So you have come full circle. So and I've not seen many leaders, probably the only leader I've seen in the industry so far, in the home care world at least, who has really gone through those paths by choice.
Yeah.
And then you've also taken different functions. You were in marketing, you're in business development, sales, to innovation, to experience. So how was that, by choice, or just that opportunity start coming your way? I was curious about that.
I don't, if you were to say like conscious choice in the moment, I think it was opportunity and passion driven. And looking back at how I've evolved in my career, it's really always been about how do you enhance the experience that you're having from the provider perspective, so that you can do what you need to do what you're here to do, which is serve more clients and help more caregivers rise themselves within the ranks. Nobody, very few people want to stay stagnant. And so how are you creating opportunities for them? And that started with, creating opportunities where, like, from an electronic EMR perspective, the transition that I had from provider over to Health MedX was the first step in that. And it was, at that point, EMRs and the home care space were lacking, and I think there's still some areas of opportunity, but we're way farther ahead now than we've ever been before. And it's not actually just because of the EMRs, it's because of solutions like AutomationEdge, and it's the pieces that can plug into those solutions. But I think my thought process on who was responsible for that evolved, and you can see that within my career path of where to make the biggest impact. And when I finally went over to Home Care Pulse, which is now known as Activated Insights, it was that voice. How do you become the voice of your clients and caregivers and give that voice meaning to actionable change in an agency? And how does that actually impact the bottom line and the care that's being provided? And Home Care Pulse is responsible for the biggest benchmarking report in our industry, and they're able to correlate that with data. And to me, that was like, okay, that's the next step. But probably for the last 5 years, I've been thinking about coming back to the provider side. It's just, I kept thinking, hey, technology is going to be what drives that change. But then opportunity arose last year in August for me to be able to come make a decision. And, Glee, our CEO, is somebody that I've had a longstanding relationship with. We were business book buddies, where we would trade business ideas and business books. And I thought no better organization to join than one where we can help people's dreams come true, because in a franchise network, that's essentially what we're doing. We're getting to serve the industry that I love and have a passion around, but I'm also able to help all of our owners' dreams come true of having, entrepreneurial spirit and be able to drive their growth goals, but also be able to drive a massive difference in our industry. So it's like the best of both worlds.
Absolutely, absolutely. Fantastic, fantastic, Kristen. Now, I also see that you also have an influencer on some of the organizations like NHC, and you've also founded IDEA. So you've not stopped where you are today. You're just continuing to make an impact on ensuring that you personally take a lead, like Ideal. I want you to talk about a little bit about Ideal also before we go further on first slide, and also NHC as an influencer on private duty advisory council, right? So that's something very, very interesting too, where you want to say you want to be part of that vehicle or platform where you can make an impact, especially when you very focused and driven around women, right? How women can make an impact. Yeah.
Well, I'm going to take a drink for that one.
Sure.
Because it's a big one to pull off. I think it goes to why I was nominated by my peers as an agent of change within the industry. Because I don't find it as anything more than simply our responsibility to bring a voice and change to an industry. And honestly, even broader than that, like, home care, it's really the bigger, broader industry of the lack of representation of women in the executive C-suite. When you think about our industry as a whole, and you think about the percentage of women and minorities that make up the care delivery of our industry, and then you look at representation in the boardroom and C-suite, it's a dismal look of our future. And I think that there's a huge opportunity for us to create change, because I think creating programs and cultivating women within healthcare is how you actually propel innovation and change. I don't think it's the only way, but I think it's a core component of it. So I founded Ideal a couple years back, and that was predominantly around being able to help women rise within the ranks. I rose, but I climbed, pretty aggressively, and sometimes at the cost of a fingernail, and sometimes at the cost of, a hand. And it wasn't easy. And it doesn't have to be so hard. I don't think that you make it so easy that, you got to be able to have, um, the stamina to really be able to go after. But I think if you have the desire and you have the framework for it, and you have a community that can help support you and mentor you, then I think you'd see more women rise within the industry. And I do think that we're starting to see that representation. But I equally wanted to see it not only in the boardroom and on the C-suite, I wanted to see it on stage and represented at industry events. And so Ideal was founded out of out of a challenge of, how do we find the most qualified women, and how do we find people that want to rise and want those opportunities. And so we provided them with an opportunity to be able to easily find and identify them, and then also bring people together to be able to have those conversations of the challenges that we're faced within the industry. And it's not just for women necessarily, because as you know, men are a part of Ideal, because you don't get equity without men standing in your corner, and you don't get quality healthcare systems without us working together. So it's not a with or without, it's together. Together we have to do this, and we have to create the change. And the numbers would suggest, from a caregiver perspective, that we have to be able to provide more opportunities for our caregivers to even rise within the businesses. So I don't know if
No, definitely. I was part of the Ideal, I must say personally, right? So I was there in the hall last year. Was it this year, right? January is where
Yeah, it was January. It feels like
it was
last year.
Yeah, but yeah. So and we were the few men in the hall,
Yeah.
And we could see the energy in with all the women, the leaders on stage, and different topics about equity, about personal stories, about somebody losing their father, mother, brother, and how that influenced these women to rise up on the occasion, and then be part of the storytelling, and also making a change. For example, I think if you remember, Purvi was there. Advertis was there talking about her own mother and how she is now become a vocal support for diversity, and in terms of not only as woman leader, but also in terms of care, because she found those gaps. When you need a certain type of care, how do you change as part of the intake process? We had one panel discussion where how the intake itself should take care of all the aspects that you need to capture to give a 360-degree. And care begins at home by a mother. And only mother can understand how to take care, feed the spouse as well as the children, right? So it was very fascinating to see to those discussions, and then you put that platform Ideal as a founder. So kudos to you, Kristen. And we need more and more discussions. Maybe you should have that every quarter, some sort of panel sessions online, or not just in person. There is so much opportunity to exchange ideas, especially around care and Ideal and women leadership.
I agree. Like, having the platform there is what it's about. I mean, I'm just the person that got the ball rolling. But Ideal is really around the group setting that we've got, right? And being able to give other people the microphone and the stage. We are looking at ways, how do we scale it? But it's hard, with busy schedules. How do you balance all those things? But that's a real part of the subject too, with, keep things talking and keep things going, from that perspective, because it's important, and it's how you really impact long-term change. So I agree. And then the knock, I say knock. Bill Dombey, who is a very great
Bill
friend,
Dombey, yeah.
He would say it's knack, Kristen. It's not knock. I'm from the South, and we say knock, and we always have.
Yes.
Knock is one of the organizations I grew up with. Bill and his predecessors, and the board over the many years, they've watched me grow up, and they've mentored me. And now I get to be a part of that organization by sitting on the council. And for me, I actually, I help them with membership opportunities and things like that as well. And I think it's important that if you're going to, you can be in this industry superficially and play a role and probably be plenty successful. But I'm in this industry truly because I'm passionate about it and I really want to see change happen. And when you get the brightest minds together across the entire industry, no matter if they're competitors, vendors, or who they are, and you have collaboration efforts, that's how change takes place. And so when Kristen Wheeler and Bill Dombey gave me the opportunity to join, from that perspective, you don't, how do you say no, right? How do you say no to that?
Absolutely.
How do you say no to, you figure out how to balance the time, because it's important to me, it's important to all the owners at First Light, and it's important to the industry as a whole, that we're staying abreast of all of the issues that are happening, and some of the topics we go over are changes from a Medicaid perspective, but also from a VA, and some of the funding issues that take place, and home care plays a critical role in all of this, and so having a voice is the first place to start in making a difference, right?
Absolutely, Kristen. Coming to First Light now, you're probably about 1 year into your tenure there. I think that's a good. I would say a milestone for you to gauge where First Light is in a journey, and as a leader there for innovation and experience, how do you see First Light now going through a transformation, being as a franchise provider across all types of service lines that you're part of, and how AI and innovation will become front and center, where you can apply all your experience that you've gathered so far, and how you see the future coming up. So, do you have a plan, or do you have some kind of a initiative, a program that you're institutionalizing that will help First Light not only improve the experience from a caregiver clinician perspective, but also patient, which is very important, because that's what all experience is about, right? Finally, it has to touch the person that you're caring, and then in terms of technology that you are investing or going to invest, that will help further foster that growth and profitability.
So I got to give it to Glee for having the idea to create a new role with me coming on board, which was innovation and experience tied together, because it gives us the opportunity to be able to look at what we're doing in a very different way, a different capacity. And it also gave focus to a lot of the areas where we needed to solve for too. So, in the first year, really creating a foundation. How do we create processes and scalability? And just like you would from a tech side, cleaning out the technical debt within the business to make sure that we're really able to adopt change, because what good is an excellent tech stack if you're not really ready to adopt and get user acceptance of those different changes? And so I think we're finally turning the curve to where we're in a place where we're really ready to roll out some of those things. And that doesn't mean that we haven't been, but it's now for the adoption piece of it all. And I think one of the first things that you can do from an organization perspective that we've done is leveraging the tools that are easy to leverage right now, like Gemini or ChatGPT 4.0, the secured versions of those, because it can help any organization quickly analyze tremendous amounts of data in record speed and give you key insights and trends to the data sets that you have within your business, and allow you to create actionable change to those. That, I think, to me, that's an immediate game changer that any organization can leverage and deploy and become experts on of their own. I also think that becoming experts in innovation is not just the responsibility of the tech vendors. It is the responsibility of the providers to embrace that and drive the change themselves. And that some of those functions need to be in-house functions, whereas some of the functions for tech stacks should be outsourced. And if you asked me, well, what are the ones, Kristen, that would be in-house versus outhouse, or not an outhouse, but outsourced?
Outsourced. Yeah.
But if which ones of those would be which, I think we're still trying to figure out some of that. And I think that also comes through a lot of vetting of different vendors and what the model is, and also the cost constraints to it. Because ultimately, some of the partnerships that I've identified, they may be excellent, but because of the price point, in order to be able to integrate them in with EMRs, or the price point that they are then caught, they're then inflicted with from rev shares that are outrageous. It becomes unsustainable for us, the providers, and so then we look at, can we bear that burden of that cost, or is it better for us just to go out on our own and figure it out and sustain? So I think we're in an interesting place, and I think we're in a wonderful position finally, almost to even come out of the dark ages from a technology perspective, because many other industries are so much further advanced than home care and healthcare has been. We're like behind the curve. And I do think that COVID helped us, though, in regards to accelerating those changes. And I think that COVID also helped accelerate change within the technology stacks. So I think those types of things are helping us. And I'm excited to see where it all goes. I have my own theories, and we have our own roadmaps of plans of what we want to do. But I think I want to help my owners have more actionable data so that they can make better decisions for their business. And I want them to be able to also, sorry, Lucy had to jump off. And I want them to be able to grow exponentially by reducing their overhead costs as well. And how can tech help support that? So those are,
Absolutely.
I don't know if that answers your question.
No, definitely. I think and I've seen that, I've seen that pattern of your thoughts, Kristen, in multiple forums, also in the events that you talked about, right? The big thing that you emphasize is not the technology or the solution itself, but that the aspect of provider being ready to adopt and change, which we are going through ourselves. We have great technology on hand, but then how do you apply to a specific setting for a provider, and so that it's easy to embrace, easy to adopt, easy to induce change, so that the technology becomes more of a toolkit for you, that you can use to accelerate your growth as well as profitability, and improve the patient and the staff and the caregiver clinician's experience. So that aspect is probably more important than the technology itself.
It is.
So because there's technology you can buy, anywhere, like you said, right? There are so many vendors out there that you have a choice of. So talking about that change, I want to re-emphasize that, Kristen. So within the provider realm of ecosystem, how are you educating and enabling internally the leaders, your peer leaders, as well as the staff on the ground who are providing care to your patients, including because some of this technology will impact the patient experience. They may have to use, smartphones to get their visibility of the care cycle, of what's coming, and the data insights that you talked about that they may be able to take actions on. So is it something that you think we need within the provider realm also, or domain, to be ready for this change? Is it processes? Is it some documentation, training, enablement? What do you think that will be readiness that will help?
I think every problem that has to be solved in any business is categorized only in two different categories, and that's process or people. And technology can be a people problem, and it can be a process problem too. And so it's a subcategory of those. I don't fall by the old thought process, that it's people, process, and tech. I think it's actually just people and process, and tech is a subset of that because it could be a problem of both. And so I believe that having the right people that have the right cultural mindset for change and embracing change is absolutely critical to any organization's success. And then with that, you're able to define and have excellent processes of communication and cross collaboration that allows everybody from the top down to then be able to embrace the new changes and new technologies behind it. And I think you have to have clear communication across the board on both of those when you're doing it. I think you have to be able to articulate in a way. And that's one of the things that I actually just was doing some soul searching on, the differences between corporate environment and a franchise environment. And communication is important in both, but I can't emphasize you will fail in a franchise network if you are not communicating clearly on the why and the impact, because ultimately they can make their own decisions, and they are owners in the business. And so rather than having thousands of caregivers and clients to manage, I have hundreds of CEOs that we partner with. And so that partnership is a different style of communication in order to get adoption. And I think you do that through good data. And I think you get data through good pilots. And I think you get good pilots through making sure that people understand what the value is and the vision of these solutions to their business. And so those are the pieces that I think foundationally we've been working on and establishing, is making sure that those things are all in place. And I think we're finally getting to a place where you can move a whole lot faster whenever you got the right people in the right roles and you got strong, stable processes that are ready to roll.
Excellent. Yeah, I think that framework is very important. I think you said it right. Without which, you cannot just roll out something that they're not ready for and just get a knee-jerk reaction, and everything will suffer. Yeah, absolutely. So let me come to my last question. I know we're a little bit over here. We started a few minutes late, so that I don't take much of your time. So, Kristen, now this is a personal question again, and you can end it in a note that you can share any of your personal anecdotes. You have faced significant personal and professional challenges, right, over the years, and I won't go into specifics. I'll have you share if any. How has that personal and professional challenges helped you shape your own perspective on life and leadership, that you would like to give an advice to somebody who wants to start an agency, somebody who wants to take a leadership role, doesn't matter, it's a woman or a man. What would be the advice that you would like to give from your own personal story?
Yeah, so I'm very open, and it's all public, like the health, stuff that I've worked through. And everybody has something that they've worked through, trials and tribulations. I heal through the support networks and support systems and whatnot, and being open with what I'm working through on those areas. And to me, that's been a big piece of it. I think that some of the things that I've learned through all of that, and that's helped me, is you plan, God laughs.
Yes.
There's only so much we as humans get to control, but we do get to control how we respond to situations and how we learn from situations. And when you're in the throes of trauma, whether that's personal trauma or professional trauma, it's hard to find gratitude. But the quicker you can find gratitude for and being grateful for the experience that you're having, even in the worst of situations, the better off you are, because we're learning from something always. And whether it's bad, horrible situation that you would have rather avoided, you're growing from it, and it's humbling. And I think it's easy we all have egos.
Yes.
and we all think that it's never going to be us until it is us. And I think when you go through personal significant challenges, it reminds you that you're not untouchable, that you are human and that things will happen to you, and it helps you prioritize what's important in life. It also helps you check, are you still doing the things that you believe are the right things that you should be doing in life? And it helps you, give you levity to issues that just aren't worth your time. If it's not going to matter in 5 years, then why do you give it more than 5 minutes? And that's something that's been told to me over and over and over throughout my career. As I, try to fight or die on certain hills and realize which ones are actually the important ones and help you prioritize them. So it's unfortunate that, bad things have to happen for you to have a wake up, but I'm a totally different person today on July 1st of 2024 than I was on July 1st of 2023.
23. Yes.
And the headspace that I'm in today is a much better place, that's much more prepared for anything that could come at me because of those experiences. So yeah.
No, I must call out. Thank you so much with that note, Kristen. I must call out specifically my personal take on what you have been doing also, right? The other quality that I have to share with the audience is you are a giving person. Okay. The reason is that I'll give you some examples, right? I follow you on LinkedIn. You do not hesitate when a position opens up in your network. Share it with your network and say, hey, is somebody looking for this leadership role? And you don't have to do that. You're already, second is if somebody loses a job, if somebody is laid off, right, at any level, you are there to share that person's profile and say, hey, is somebody looking for, I worked with her. You do not shy away from being in a very public setting to say, I want to go and give, and I want to give help out. So that care is there on your professional side of it also. So I must say that's something that that very few leaders have done that. They don't have to do that. They're in their own world of just managing the show on a day-to-day basis. But
Thank you.
Do you have any comment on that? That you would like to encourage others also to do the same?
I just think that your time here is so fast.
Yes.
Here, I mean, on Earth, like we only get so much time. And one of the little things that you can do to help somebody else can change their whole world. And
100%.
You're here for a reason. And everybody's got to figure out what is their reason for being here. And one of mine is I want to help as many people as I can help. Whenever I skid into that grave one of these days, I want to know that I've left it all on the table and I've helped as many people as I can, and I've hurt as few people as possible in the process. And it goes with doing the little things as well as the big things. And I think it's something that I do, but it's also been sometimes an Achilles heel, because it can open you up to getting hurt too, because you're out there, you're putting yourself out there. But I wouldn't take any of it back, and I'll take the wounds that come along with putting yourself out there because it's the right thing to do. It's why I'm here.
Great. With that note, thank you, Kristen, once again. It's humbling and fantastic having a conversation with you. I know you much more than as a person that we had those short conversations over a coffee.
I appreciate
or breakfast.
I appreciate the time and the opportunity, and we will stay in touch. I promise you that.
Absolutely, Kristen. It's a pleasure again, and we'll send the brief of this interview also to you and Lucy to have a look at it before we publish it. It's an honor and privilege again to have you on this digital magazine for us, the Automation Edge. Thank you. Have a great day. Thank you.
You too.
And happy
Bye.
July 4th weekend.
Yeah, you too. Have a good weekend.
Good. Bye-bye.